Have you ever had a simple disagreement that somehow turned into an hour-long argument simply because one person refused to stop talking? No matter what you said, no matter how calmly you tried to end things, they always found one more thing to add. This is not just stubbornness, it is a specific psychological pattern rooted in control, insecurity, and a deep need to always feel superior. Today we are exploring the dark psychology of people who always have to have the last word in absolutely every single conversation. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why this happens and how to protect your peace from endless pointless arguments. You will also learn the psychological reasons behind this pattern and practical ways to stop engaging with someone who refuses to ever stop. Stay until the end, because the final tactic we cover is the one that quietly drains people the most without them even realizing it. Let us start with the basic truth. Meeting the last word is rarely about the actual topic being discussed in that moment. It is about control, about winning, and about ensuring that they are never the one who appears to have lost the argument. For these individuals, ending a conversation without the final say feels like a personal defeat they simply cannot emotionally tolerate or accept. The first psychological reason behind this behavior is deep-rooted insecurity, disguised cleverly as confidence and unwavering certainty during every single disagreement. Their identity is built on being right, so allowing someone else the final word feels like losing a piece of who they are. This is not really about the argument itself, it is about protecting a fragile sense of self that depends entirely on winning. The second reason is a genuine fear of appearing weak, where silence or agreement feels like vulnerability they are simply not willing to show. To them, backing down means losing status, so they keep talking long after the actual point has already been thoroughly made clear. The third reason is narcissistic personality traits, where the person genuinely cannot tolerate any version of events where they are not correct. For a narcissist, the last word is not just an opinion, it is proof of their intellectual and emotional superiority over everyone else. The fourth reason is childhood conditioning, where the person grew up in an environment where losing an argument led to punishment or humiliation. If a child learned that being wrong was dangerous, they often grow into adults who fight relentlessly to never appear incorrect again. The fifth reason is a competitive personality trait taken too far, where every conversation becomes a contest that must be won at all costs. For these individuals, disagreement is not a discussion, it is a battle, and every battle must end with them standing victorious somehow. Now let us talk about the specific tactics these people use, tactics that are surprisingly consistent no matter who is using them against you. The first tactic is repetition, where they simply repeat their point over and over, hoping you will eventually give up from sheer exhaustion. This tactic relies entirely on wearing you down, since arguing endlessly requires far more energy than most people are willing to spend. The second tactic is escalating volume, where their voice gets louder as the conversation continues, using intensity to intimidate rather than actual logic. This creates pressure to simply concede, not because they made a better point, but because continuing feels increasingly uncomfortable and exhausting for you. The third tactic is bringing up unrelated past issues, dragging old arguments into the current conversation just to keep the disagreement going longer. This prevents any resolution, because now there are multiple topics to argue about instead of simply addressing the original point being discussed. The fourth tactic is dismissive one-liners, where they end every exchange with a sarcastic remark designed to make your point seem unimportant. Phrases like "whatever you say" or "sure if that helps you sleep at night" are designed to belittle rather than genuinely respond. The fifth tactic is interrupting constantly, never allowing you to fully finish a thought before jumping in with their own counterpoint immediately. This tactic ensures they always appear to have the final say, even if what they interrupted with barely addressed your actual point. The sixth tactic is redefining your words, twisting what you actually said until you are forced to defend a completely different statement. Instead of engaging with your real point, they argue against a distorted version, making the conversation feel confusing and impossible to resolve. The seventh tactic is claiming false victory, where they simply declare the argument over and act as though they clearly won the discussion. Even if nothing was actually resolved, they behave as if their final statement settled everything, leaving you frustrated and completely unheard once again. The eighth tactic is guilt-tripping to end things their way, making you feel like continuing the conversation is somehow unreasonable or exhausting. This forces you to stop, not because you agree, but because continuing feels emotionally unbearable compared to simply giving in and moving on. The ninth tactic is walking away mid-conversation after delivering their final point, denying you any chance to respond or offer clarification. This physically ensures they have the last word, since leaving the room prevents any further discussion from continuing naturally between the two people. Now, let us talk about how this pattern actually affects relationships over time, because the damage builds slowly and often goes unnoticed. You may start avoiding disagreements entirely, choosing silence over conflict simply because arguing with this person never leads anywhere productive or resolved. This creates a relationship where one person's voice always dominates, while the other slowly stops sharing their honest thoughts and feelings altogether. Over time, this imbalance can lead to resentment, since one person carries the emotional and mental exhaustion of every single disagreement alone. Friends and family may notice you have become quieter around this person, choosing to agree simply to avoid another draining, unresolved argument. This is often called conversational dominance, a pattern where one person consistently controls the direction and outcome of every discussion between two people. The relationship becomes deeply exhausting because genuine two-sided communication is replaced by one person constantly needing to prove they are right. Let us look at real-world examples of how this pattern quietly plays out across different relationships in everyday ordinary situations and dynamics. Imagine a couple discussing weekend plans, where one partner keeps adding new points until the other simply agrees just to end the conversation. Imagine a workplace meeting where a colleague repeats their opinion louder and louder and louder until everyone else quietly stops offering their own perspective entirely. Imagine a family dinner where a sibling brings up old grievances just to keep winning an argument that started about something completely unrelated. In every one of these examples, the actual topic becomes secondary, while the true goal becomes ensuring one person emerges as the winner. This is exactly how the pattern sustains itself, because the need to win consistently outweighs the desire for genuine mutual understanding or resolution. So how do you protect your peace from someone who consistently needs to have the last word in absolutely every single conversation? The first step is recognizing that not every disagreement requires a definitive winner, and walking away does not mean you have lost anything. Choosing peace over proving a point is not weakness. It is often the wisest and most emotionally intelligent decision you can make. The second step is setting a clear internal boundary, deciding in advance how many times you will repeat your point before disengaging. This prevents you from getting pulled into an endless cycle where the conversation continues purely because the other person refuses to stop. The third step is using calm, neutral phrases like "I hear you," and "I am done discussing this for now," without escalating further. This signals clearly that you are ending the conversation now, without giving them additional material to twist or argue against once again. The fourth step is physically removing yourself from the conversation when necessary, since some people genuinely cannot stop themselves once they start arguing. Walking away is not rude. It is a form of self-protection when a conversation has clearly stopped being productive or respectful. The fifth step is refusing to engage with unrelated accusations or old grievances, calmly redirecting back to the original topic being discussed. This prevents the conversation from spiraling into unrelated territory, keeping the focus on resolving one issue instead of relitigating the entire relationship. The sixth step is seeking outside perspective from a trusted friend, family member, or therapist who can help you see the pattern clearly. Sometimes we are too emotionally close to a situation to recognize how draining this dynamic has become within our own daily relationships. The seventh step is recognizing that some people are simply not capable of ending a conversation without feeling like they have won. This does not mean you are wrong for wanting resolution. It simply means that particular person may never be able to provide it. Protecting your peace sometimes means fully accepting that you will not always get the closure of a fair, balanced, two-sided conversation. It is important to remember that walking away from an argument does not mean you are wrong. It means you value your peace. Real communication involves listening, mutual respect, and the willingness to end a conversation without needing to prove absolute intellectual or moral superiority. Learning to spot the difference between healthy debate and needing to win can protect you from years of one-sided emotional exhaustion. Healthy people can disagree and simply let a topic rest because their sense of self does not depend on always having the final say. There are also 3 distinct types of people who need the last word, and recognizing which type you face changes your approach. The first type is called the debater, someone who genuinely enjoys intellectual argument and often does not realize how exhausting it feels to others. The debater is not always intentionally manipulative, but the outcome often feels identical, leaving the other person mentally drained and unheard regardless. The second type is called the dominator, someone who uses arguments purely as a tool to establish control and authority within a relationship. The dominator rarely cares about the actual topic, focusing instead on ensuring the other person feels smaller by the end of the exchange. The third type is called the wounded ego, someone whose insecurity is so deep that losing any argument feels like a personal attack. The wounded ego type often escalates very quickly, because even minor disagreements threaten their fragile sense of self-worth and personal identity. Understanding which type you are dealing with helps you respond more effectively rather than expecting the same approach to work with everyone. Neuroscience also plays a role here, because losing an argument activates brain regions associated with processing genuine social threat and personal status. For someone with a fragile identity, being wrong in front of others is not just uncomfortable, it feels like an actual social threat. This is why some people become defensive so quickly. Their body enters a protective response before they have consciously processed what was said. It is also worth mentioning that needing the last word is not limited to romantic relationships, and often appears within families and workplaces too. A parent who must always have the final say teaches their children that disagreement is unsafe, shaping how those children handle conflict later. A boss who never allows an employee to finish a point creates a workplace where honest communication feels risky and genuinely unwelcome. A sibling who must always win family debates trains everyone else to simply stay quiet rather than share a differing honest opinion. Recognizing this pattern across different relationships helps you protect your energy more broadly, not just within romantic partnerships or dating situations specifically. Another overlooked sign is needing the last word even in written messages, continuing to text long after a conversation should have naturally ended. This digital version of the pattern can feel even more exhausting since there is no physical way to simply walk out of the room. If someone continues texting after you have clearly stated you are done discussing something, that persistence itself is valuable information worth noting. It is also worth recognizing your own patterns, since some people develop this habit without realizing how it affects those closest to them. If you often feel the urge to send one more message or add one more point, pause and ask yourself what you are protecting. Building self-awareness around your own need to always be right can improve your relationships far more than winning any single argument ever could. This does not mean silencing your opinions entirely. It means recognizing when continuing a conversation no longer serves genuine understanding or connection. Another practical tip is separating disagreement from disrespect, recognizing that someone can have a different opinion without it being a personal attack. Not every single unfinished conversation is truly a loss. Sometimes agreeing to disagree is actually the healthiest and most mature possible outcome. Recovery from constantly engaging in this pattern often involves rebuilding your own confidence, since exhausting arguments can leave you doubting your own judgment. Remind yourself that choosing not to respond is not the same as losing. It is often the strongest and most confident choice. Every difficult conversation experience can become a valuable lesson, helping you recognize this pattern much faster the next time it potentially appears again. This growth is not about becoming passive with everyone. It is about becoming more selective about which battles are genuinely worth fighting. Surrounding yourself with people who can disagree respectfully can also help recalibrate your sense of what a healthy conversation actually feels like. Healthy conversations often end with genuine mutual understanding, even without full agreement, rather than one person forcing the other into silent submission. Give yourself permission to end conversations that consistently leave you feeling exhausted, regardless of whether the other person considers the matter resolved. Real communication includes both disagreement and closure, rather than one person endlessly needing to prove a point that was already clearly made. If you found this video helpful, consider sharing it with someone who may currently be experiencing this exact exhausting communication pattern themselves. Awareness is one of the most powerful tools against this pattern, and sharing this information can genuinely help protect people within your own life. Understanding dark psychology patterns like this one empowers you to communicate more clearly, rather than simply reacting emotionally without any real understanding. The more you understand these tactics, the less power they hold over your future conversations and your ability to protect your own peace. Healing takes time, but every step towards self-awareness brings you closer to relationships built on mutual respect rather than constant competition. You are not weak for choosing to walk away. You are simply protecting your own energy from a conversation that was never truly resolvable. Give yourself the same compassion you would offer a close friend going through this exact same exhausting and frustrating experience right now. If this video helped you recognize someone in your life a little better, please subscribe for more deep psychology breakdowns just like this. In our next video, we explore the disturbing psychology of people who use silence and distance as their favorite emotional weapon of choice. The right people in your life will not need to win every conversation, because their identity does not depend on always being correct. Trust builds through mutual respect and honest listening, not through cleverly outlasting someone until they simply give up from total complete exhaustion. You deserve conversations that leave you feeling heard and respected, not exhausted, and questioning why every disagreement has to become such a battle. There is also an important overlooked sign worth mentioning, where someone only insists on the last word when others are present to witness. This selective behavior reveals awareness of their own actions, since the need to win rarely disappears the moment a third person leaves. Pay attention to how someone behaves differently in private versus in front of others, since this contrast often reveals a calculated pattern. If the need to win only appears with an audience present, that inconsistency itself is valuable information worth taking seriously moving forward. Trusting your own instinct that a conversation has become unproductive takes practice, especially if you have spent years feeling obligated to respond. Give yourself credit for noticing these patterns now, even if it took time, because awareness itself is a significant form of progress. Some people will spend their entire lives needing to win, and the healthiest choice you can make is refusing to keep competing. Protecting your peace does not require changing someone else, it only requires changing how much energy their behavior receives from you daily. You can respect someone deeply while still recognizing that their communication style is genuinely unhealthy and consistently draining to your own well-being. These two truths can exist together, and accepting that reality is often the first step toward making healthier decisions moving forward confidently. Remember that silence is not surrender. Choosing not to respond during a distorted argument is simply protecting your own peace and clarity. You are always allowed to fully disengage from conversations that repeatedly leave you feeling smaller, unheard, or endlessly trapped in pointless repetition. Choosing peace over winning an argument is not weakness. It is often the wisest and most emotionally intelligent decision you can make. Thank you so much for watching until the end, and remember that your peace matters more than winning any single conversation ever will. One additional sign worth mentioning is someone who must comment on everything, even topics that have absolutely nothing to do with them personally. This need to insert a final opinion into every discussion often stems from a deep fear of being overlooked or considered irrelevant. Recognizing this underlying fear can help you respond with genuine compassion, while still protecting your own energy from constant unnecessary conversational involvement. Compassion for someone's insecurity does not mean you owe them your patience indefinitely, especially when the pattern consistently drains your own peace. It is possible to understand why someone behaves this way while still choosing to limit how much of your energy they receive. Some relationships genuinely improve once the other person becomes fully aware of this pattern and makes a conscious effort to listen more. Growth is possible, but it requires the other person to want change, rather than you continuously absorbing the exhaustion of every argument. If you notice yourself becoming the one who always gives in, consider whether that pattern is serving your well-being or slowly eroding it. Healthy relationships allow both people to occasionally have the last word, rather than one single person consistently dominating every single conversation entirely. Balance in communication does not mean keeping constant score. It simply means both people feel equally heard and respected throughout most discussions. If you consistently feel unheard within a relationship, that specific pattern deserves honest reflection, whether through direct, calm conversation or professional support. Sometimes naming the pattern directly, calmly explaining exactly how it affects you, can open the door to genuine change within a relationship. Other times, the healthiest choice is simply accepting that certain people will never change and adjusting your own expectations and boundaries accordingly. Either path requires self-awareness, patience, and a willingness to prioritize your own peace over the temporary discomfort of an unresolved conversation. Remember that walking away from someone who needs the last word is not giving up. It is choosing your own well-being first. You do not owe anyone endless debate just because they refuse to stop talking or accept that a conversation has genuinely ended. Your silence in these particular moments is not weakness. It is often the clearest, calmest, and most powerful response available to you. Thank you again for watching, and remember that peace of mind is always more valuable than winning any single conversation ever could be.